Hey, this is Derek with UFMTiger.com back for another video. Today I'm going to discuss the iPad Pro and what is Pro. Um, this was kind of a thing that came up whenever I was considering buying a 2024 iPad M4 13-inch, and I did buy one. I bought a 256 model. It ended up being $12.99. I ended up trading in my other iPad. They gave me $510 for it. So, some of these and some of these reviews where they're talking about your iPad can cost $2,200. Yeah, but it doesn't have to. You can buy an iPad for $1,000. I'm talking about the new Pro version, $999. So this idea that you have to spend $2,000, you don't. So, you can, and if you have the needs for that extra RAM and extra cores that you're going to also get with those versions, the 1 TB versions, great, but not everybody needs that. And so there's other people that have a $350 iPad. There's the Airs that are in between the prices. And so Apple's given us some variety. But the thing that I keep seeing is that, and I've seen it in just about every review, not every review. I'll give Mr. Who's the Boss credit. He did talk about maybe possibly switching to the iPad because it is pro enough for him now. So I'll link that in the show notes. But there's like almost every other review has said this hardware is great, but the OS is not so great, to put it mildly. One specific podcaster I saw, one of my favorites, by the way. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have his own opinion. He could, but this is my opinion. He's saying, okay, I'm using a podcast software and I can't do it on the iPad. And I do know that some people are able to use the iPad for podcasts. There's YouTube videos if you want to go look them up. But he says he can't. And so I think it had something to do with audio streams or something. So whether or not we'll get that in the next iPad is another story. But anyway, his thing was that if there's and he mentioned that, yeah, this is a niche case, but there could be a lot of niche cases. And if they don't do them, then they're not pro. And what I want to say is, on my specific job, we use Windows. And so on those Windows computers I use at my job, there are applications that do not work on the Mac and they don't work on the iPad. So for me, if we're going to get into every single niche out there, the Mac is not pro and the iPad is not pro. Is that how we're going to judge it? Not whether or not a creative can use this as a profession in their profession, whether a realtor can use it in their profession, whether a designer can use it in the profession. That's irrelevant. It's got to fit every single niche job out there. Is that how we're going to judge if something's pro? Secondly, if you think about the pro that Apple's using in their commercials, does it really mean that a professional can't use a MacBook Air? I don't think that's what they're saying when they say we have a MacBook Pro and we have a MacBook Air, or we have an iPad Pro and we have an iPad Air. I think what they're actually saying is, okay, this has got the general features that almost everybody uses. If you have extra things you need, extra features you want, then we have what we're calling the Pro model. They could have called it something else. They could have called it Ultra, like my watch. This is a Ultra, Apple Watch Ultra. It's not just your regular Apple Watch. Why is it Ultra? It has more features, but does it still have Apple OS or whatever, Apple Watch OS? Yes, it does. So does that make it more Ultra? I don't know. How do you define Ultra? They didn't call it Pro, though, so I'll give them credit for that. Maybe this should be called the iPad Ultra. So that's the thing. It's like, why would somebody want the M4 chip in the iPad? Well, what if you're using Final Cut? What if you're using apps like Lightroom? What if you're using you want to be able to see your photographs in the best possible screen available? Those are all pro things that you can do over here. There's also things that are pro for the iPad. So like I said, we use Windows at work. For years, I'm talking when probably 5 years, I used an iPad. Probably all the way up until COVID. I used an iPad in my job. What for? I thought you said you couldn't use an iPad because it's not pro and doesn't run the Windows software. Yeah, but you can take notes, and I get a lot of phone calls, and I have to write things down, and then sometimes I have to carry this to another computer that we have. It's a specialized computer we have in a different room, so sometimes I have to be able to make this mobile or go into somebody's office, take notes, and then have it available. So the iPad was great for that, and also because it gave you the ability to go back and see, okay, I talked to so and so 3 days ago. I'll just go back into my notes on the iPad and find it, rather than having them into a computer that you have to keep track of. This you can't walk around with it or trying to dig through pages and notes. It just gives you a little more professional take, and the fact that they had the pencil, when they added that, it even made it more useful. So, so as a pro, well, if I have to choose for my job and I have to use either a Mac or the iPad's more pro because it's more easily carryable from one place to another. I don't need the keyboard for that. All I need is the pen. And so it's very light and manageable. Where having another computer sitting there on my desk, no, that's not going to work. Um, so for me, yeah, it's more pro. For a lot of jobs, this is more pro. For some positions, coders and people like that, and I guess some podcasters, the Mac is more pro. And so, why does Apple make a Mac and an iPad? Well, I'm going to tell you where the iPad originated. The iPad originated because they had this here, and it was 4 inches wide at one time, or 4 inches from top to bottom. And so Steve Jobs said that you had to be able to touch the top of the screen with your thumb. And so, how did they get around it? People wanted to see these apps on bigger screens, so they created iPad. Well, um, so right out of the gate, they determined that we're going to use the one of the most popular, successful computer products of all time as the base, rather than a product that is a niche. I'm sorry, the Mac is a niche. And so whenever you compare Windows to Macs, you have one thing. If you have this, there's a lot of people that use Windows computers that use this. And so if you're using a Windows computer and you have this, and they say, yeah, okay, we got a new device that you can see stuff on this bigger, on a bigger screen. Or you can buy a whole new operating system and learn it. Good luck with cut and paste. Just one of my own frustrations when I first went to Macs. So whatever. So people don't want to learn Macs. The people that use Windows and iPhones don't want Macs or don't necessarily want Macs. I will say that I have Macs. You know, I have Macs instead of Windows as my main thing at home, even though I do have Windows computers. Um, why would I want Mac? And that's just so I don't have the same experience at home. It's not because the Macs are better. They, matter of fact, they work very similar in a very similar way to my Windows computer, other than the Mac not running the software that I need. And the fact that, if Apple put Final Cut and some other applications, photos work decently on, like there's three applications I use on the Mac that really kind of suck on the Windows. Their music app, their photos app, and Final Cut. If those three would come to to my Windows computer and work perfectly, I don't know that I would ever buy another Mac. So how professional is the Mac? It's really just the locked-in programs are making it successful. So it's kind of like FaceTime on the iPhone. But in either event, it's what's pro depends on the individual. So I heard somebody also say the iPad, it still has iPad OS. Duh. Do you think they're going to change iPad OS because they brought out a new iPad? No, they're still going to use iPad OS. I'm sorry. If you don't like that, iPad's not for you. And the fact that you're telling people that the iPad's not for you because it doesn't run Mac software. Well, why are people even watching the video if they have no interest in iPads? So one of the ideas was a dual boot machine, one that had iPad OS on one side and Mac OS on the other, and you could boot it into either operating system. I would love it. I would love it because I use Macs and iPhones. But I don't think people that are paying $350 are going to get that feature. They're probably going to get the feature when you spend $1,200 to $1,500, and then it comes down to, would Apple really want to lose both one of those sales? So if I'm going to sell a 14, let's say they make this 14 inches. Let's say I'm going to sell a 14-inch laptop and a 11-inch iPad. Is that a benefit for Apple to sell two machines, or is it a benefit for Apple to sell you one? And so I don't know that that's going to happen. Like I said, I'd love to see it. I just don't see it happening. Um, if it, if they wanted to run Windows on here, I'd be happy about that too. So it's like the sky's the limit. I'm sure there's guys in the back going, "What about Linux?" Yeah, Linux too. So we can run all of that on there. Of course, you have the ability to share the screen from your MacBook and use it similar to a um, Mac OS, but the Mac OS obviously doesn't have uh, it's not really integrated with touch very well, and so it's built around a cursor, and so that's one of the issues with bringing the Mac to the iPad. And it's also, there's also a flip side to all this, and I'm not hearing the complaints when I'm seeing reviews of MacBook Pros or Mac Minis. I'm not seeing that. Yes, the software is great, but what about the hardware? How come I can't get a version similar to the Surface or something like that? I have a Toshiba computer in the other room. It has touch. The screen is touch screen. You can even fold the keyboard back behind it. You can put it in tent mode so that you can watch movies and stuff. And so, why aren't we getting anything like that with the Mac? So just to use the same analogy they use in these iPad reviews. So I bought a Mac that's I paid $4,000 for it. I got 2 terabytes of memory, 32 gigabytes of RAM, but I can't detach the keyboard. I can't use pencil input that I can use on a $350 device. Why? I'm not hearing that, and that's one of my problems. Is everybody takes all their frustration with the fact that Apple hasn't brought them a Mac on with touch and brings that out on the iPad, which is a whole different device. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'm sure a lot of people won't like this video. I don't care. It's I just had to get this off my chest because I'm someone who actually loves the iPad. I'm somebody who uses it. I love the pencil input. I love the ability to remove the keyboard. And so people coming along and saying, "Oh, this is just sucks." I don't agree with that. And if I had to get along without one of them, it would be easier for me to switch to Windows for my desktop and still get the iPad than getting rid of the iPad. So let me know what you think. Have a good day and peace out.